The band is back together for another edition of BK Connect. It's Devin Carparian from thebrooklyngame.com, Rod Boone from Newsday, and yours truly, Chris Sheeran here. And we are coming to you from the press room at Barclays Center this time. And guys, we have to start with the big news recently with this Nets team, and that is, of course, the reassignment of Lawrence Frank. So just really quickly, give us your thoughts on that happening the other day.
Well, I think Jason Kidd felt he needed to make a change, and he made it. And it's very clear at this point that they're just trying to move on from from Frank, and I think that's what they're going to do.
I was very surprised by it, honestly. At this point in the season, you figured something has to change to kind of get the team going in the right direction, but nothing like that. I mean, he went out there and basically quoted Lawrence Frank early on when he got hired. So to see him not make it this far through 20 games, surprising.
Very quick.
Yeah, very quick, but they've all said they wanted to move on, and we'll see. It's, you know, the onus is squarely on Jason Kidd right now, and we're going to start with something positive before we jump into other things here, guys, and that is the play recently of Mirza and Joe Johnson. Johnson has stepped up when he needed to. With all these injuries, he's really become the go-to guy along with Brook Lopez. But let's start with Firza. You coined it. You hashtagged Firza So, and we love it at the Yes Network, by the way. But start with him and what he's meant the last couple of games.
Well, I talked to him a couple weeks ago, and he said himself he didn't know if he had a role in Brooklyn. Like, at that point, he wasn't getting a lot of playing time. He was getting DNPCDs, do not play coach's decision. You know, and he didn't know if he was going to have an opportunity to really succeed here. He was frustrated, you know. And then a couple days after that, Kidd gives him a shot. He scores 17 points, hits 4 3-pointers, hits 18 points in the next game. You know, he's one of those players where if his shot is falling, he's very effective. And when it's not, you can't really put him on the floor. But, you know, as he's gotten in rhythm in the NBA, as he started to really understand the different schemes, the different terminologies they use here, and really just kind of get a feel for a shot, he's really started to step up a little bit on the bench.
I think the biggest thing with Mirza is we knew it's a three-point shooter when he came into this league. As a European guy, that was his strength. But he's shown to me he's more than just a shooter. He can post up. He can get a rebound every now and then. He can take charges. He's kind of playing more as like an all-around player. I think that benefits the team as well as him, because if you're just out there shooting three-pointers and you're not making them, you're not doing anybody any good out there.
And he said after the Memphis game, you know, don't be deceived by my big body here. I can move on defense as well. And he's been playing better defense, just like you brought up, Rod. And Joe Johnson, let's flip the script and go to him. He's just been unbelievable lately, especially with Darren out. Now Paul Pierce with the broken hand. He's out for an extended period. So they really need him to step up, and he has.
Absolutely. I think one thing that Rod has actually been talking about a lot is getting him more in the post and getting him playing a lot more. They've played a lot more of their offense through Joe these days, especially with Darren out, with Brooks sidelined for a few games here and there. They've really used Joe very similarly to the way the Knicks use Carmelo Anthony. They've kind of used him as their focal option. Give him the ball, let him create a shot or create something for somebody else. And, you know, the Nets have struggled because they don't have all their pieces, but Joe's not the reason for that struggle.
Right, like Devin was saying, basically I think Joe has to be able to be the focal point on offense at times. Not all the time, but with guys, Darren out, Brook out, to have a consistent option on offense where you can throw the ball to the guy and say, here, make a move for me, make a play, and we take it from there. They need that, because with Joe, he has a mismatch almost every time he's on the floor. There's very few two guards in the league who actually can guard him one-on-one without getting some help. So they go through the offense through him as well as Brook. To me, that makes them have more of an identity out there on offense.
All right, let's get to our first question here. It has to deal with Joe Johnson and Paul Pierce, and it comes to us from @BKNetsNation51 via Twitter, and it's a very good question. Do you think Paul Pierce and Joe Johnson will eventually work? Their games seem too similar.
I absolutely think that they can work, because, I mean, if you look at the beginning of the season, Pierce was actually shooting quite well. He was hitting a lot of shots. He was playing very easily within the offense. Then he started to struggle a little bit, and now he's got this hand injury that actually might give him a little bit of rest for the next 2 to 4 weeks. But absolutely, I think they can play together. I think Johnson's a talented enough scorer and spot-up shooter that he can spot up around Pierce when Pierce wants to facilitate. And Pierce is one of the league's best shooters from above the break and three-pointers, and can create his own shot almost any defender. So I think when you have two guys that are that talented, you know, their games might be a little bit similar, but they still have very specific skills that they can bring to the table that can complement each other.
Right. I think, like you said, they're both similar players, and I believe that they can work together, but I also believe that eventually, when Pierce comes back, if it doesn't kind of coexist with him and Joe in the court, Kidd should probably look at maybe bringing Pierce off the bench, you know, maybe a 7th man, something like that, 6th man, because I feel like at times during the game, you need just different looks out there. And Pierce at times is kind of floating on offense. And with Joe, we know what he's getting specifically. And if you take him out and sub him and put Pierce in his place, to me, it's probably a better option at times during certain parts of the game.
Really quick, just let me follow up with you. Do you think Pierce would be willing to do that, though?
That's a good question. I'm not sure, because as a proud veteran, started pretty much his entire career, that's a big step for him to say, you know what, you came to this team, now come off the bench for us. It might be tough for him to do at first, but I believe if he's a real professional and talks to Kid about it, that he will do something like that if they ask him to do it.